Welcome everyone, and thank you for attending today's ANX Metals Limited Investor Webinar. My name is Nicola Cazzati and I'm co-founder of investor relations consultancy Corporate Storytime. We are very pleased to have an opportunity to run through the investment story for ANX Metals today, and joining us is Managing Director Geoff Laing. ANX yesterday released the Definitive Feasibility Study for the Pilbara-based WhimCreek Copper-Zinc Project. Today, Geoff will go through an investor presentation, and at the end of this presentation, we will have a Q&A session. If you haven't already forwarded a question, you may do so by using the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. So without any further ado, it is with pleasure that I hand over to Geoff. Thanks, Geoff.
Thanks, Nicola, and good morning all. It's a pleasure to be with you. So very pleased to get the Definitive Feasibility Study out and to have such positive outcomes from it. Just to take a step back to remind everyone, we acquired an 80% interest in the WhimCreek project just 2.5 years ago, and we've come a long way since then. There's obviously been a huge amount of work done by the team, and we're very proud of what we've achieved. So the DFS is really a culmination of 2.5 years. We had a scoping study halfway through that. It is a brownfields project, so much of the infrastructure is already there. So the feasibility study's been around the new mining operations and a sorting and concentrator plant. Just to remind everyone, the WhimCreek project sits between Port Hedland and Karratha, almost exactly halfway between the two. And most people know the WhimCreek pub, which sits on the highway itself, and our project sits behind that pub. We are in the process of working with the local traditional owners, the Nalama Group, to refurbish that pub. So we look forward to not only delivering copper from the Pilbara, but also being part of the iconic refurbishment of the Pilbara pub. So the project itself, the planned mine life is 8 years. It'll deliver free cash flows of around about $340 million with an IRR of 54% and a very low all-in sustaining cost of just $2.23 US a pound. So really very strong metrics, and that's on the back of reasonably high-grade VMS deposits, but then also the ore sorting technology that reduces costs and improves the economic outcomes quite significantly. We expect that the development capital will be, the pre-production capital will be $71 million, and the working capital will be around $14 million. So a total drawdown of about $85 million. And Anglo American have indicated that they will provide debt funding for the project. They're obviously now running the ruler over the detailed metrics that have now been supplied to them. The 8-year mine life will deliver between 10 and 12,000 tonne a year of copper equivalent. It is predominantly a copper operation, but there are significant zinc, lead, and byproducts, and then a little bit of silver and gold for good measure. The project will deliver about 50 million in EBIT over that 8-year mine life. So very strong EBIT over a mine life that we expect will continue to grow. I'm not going to dwell on the capital structure too much. We're currently capped at around about $30 million, 400 odd million shares on issue. And at the end of last quarter, we had just under $4.5 million cash in the bank. Just a little bit about the team. It's no mean feat to go from acquiring a project to completing a feasibility study and be well positioned to be moving ahead towards production. And it is obviously all about the team. We've got an experienced board, very supportive board, good mix of skills with our chairman, Philip Jackson's a solicitor, non-executive directors, Peter Corden's an engineer, and Phil Warren's an accountant, and has been involved in the financial sector for many years. I'm an engineer, and the strategy that we've rolled out is all around unlocking value from assets using technology. And as I've said before, we're unashamedly focused on technology and or a technology overlay, and our project development team have just the right set of skills to be able to do that. So we've got geologists, we've got engineers, our project manager, Andrew McDonald's a geologist, our technical support team at Nexus Bonham are all engineers and metallurgists. We've got a key person running our environmental approvals process in Dan O'Hara, and then all the support services as well. So it is about the team. You've got to have the right mix of people to be able to deliver these projects. And on the back of all the work that has been done, we've got strong ESG credentials. I will talk to the environmental credentials in a bit more detail once I talk about the sorting a bit further down in the slide. But we are able to demonstrate through the technology that we're using, or the overlay of the technology that we're using, that we're reducing the carbon footprint, reducing the environmental footprint, measurable outcomes in both of those. On the social side, as I started off with, we are already very involved in the Pilbara community. You can see a picture below there with us at the WhimCreek pub. That pub will provide a business for the Nylama Aboriginal Corporation, and it'll provide us potentially accommodation for our mine development and operation. So a win-win situation on that front. And then talking about growth opportunities, we have amazing growth opportunities ahead of us. We've got 2 of our resources are open at depth. That's at Evelyn and Salt Creek. So there's immediate reserve growth opportunities there. The other 2 resources, there is near-term growth potential. We are planning to build a business that will provide a processing hub for the Pilbara. So not only are we delivering a feasibility that demonstrates a very robust project on its own, that's just the first step of a processing hub business that we are looking to develop in the near term, and I'll talk to that in the next slide. We are developing some very important proprietary knowledge around bioleaching of our low-grade primary sulfides. This is very valuable know-how, technology, and we've got all the infrastructure to be able to do this from what was left behind by Straits Resources, and I'll come back to that in a minute. And then our tenure is in a very prospective region, both from a base metal and gold perspective. We sit right next door to De Grey. It's an emerging gold province on the back of De Grey's huge success. And of course, we've got all the base metals that I've just described the upside potential from an exploration perspective. So just a little bit about the processing hub. This is the yellowy orange tenements here are the Anax tenements you can see on the Northwest Highway between Headland and Karratha. And we've included in this map other resources within our region that we believe could potentially provide satellite ore feed into a processing hub. And with the technology, with pre-concentration, one is able to economically extract these base metals from remote satellite projects and economically move them into a processing hub. And that's exactly what we plan to do at WhimCreek. We have our own very robust project, but we look forward to some of these other projects that don't have the critical mass to justify all of the infrastructure, tailings dams, all of the issues that you have to go through in terms of permitting tailings dams. Some of these projects will unlikely get to the scale of justifying all of that. And we will then have a processing solution and the solutions from a logistics perspective to monetize those resources as well. So key ones to take note of that these 2 VMS deposits belong to De Grey. We of course have down to the southeast of us our joint venture partner Develop their tenements down, their resources down at Sulphur Springs. Those, of course, do have the critical mass to get on with. But then out to the west of us, we have a number of potential assets. So watch this space for the processing hub opportunity. So I'd like to take a deeper dive into the WhimCreek DFS itself and just take you through some of the key details of it. Here we have a drone image of the WhimCreek site, and you can see all the infrastructure that we acquired with the project. When Straits Resources operated WhimCreek back between 2004 and 2009, they had a heap leach and solvent extraction electrowinning operation. They produced about 67,000 tons of copper cathode very successfully. And we've now taken over all of this infrastructure. So not only do we have all the heap leach infrastructure, we've refurbished all of the pond infrastructure, but we've got workshops, offices, we've got a powerhouse, we've got the haul roads, we've got water systems, we've got bore fields. There's a crushing plant that we'll refurbish. All of this has allowed us to very efficiently, what will allow us to very efficiently develop the project. You can imagine being able to move on to a site where we've already got a little camp there. So the offices are all usable. So we can move onto site, and we've got a team on site already. But in terms of the development phase, we can get a team on there to start building the processing plant, the ore sorting plant very efficiently. Those two plants will go in up here. The ground is cleared. So there's very little to do other than get in and start building the plants and stripping back the open pit mines. And it's for this reason that we've managed to contain the capital costs. We've got small modular plant on the back of the ore sorting technology, and we've got significant infrastructure. So those two together give us very low pre-development capex and deliver the sort of economic metrics that we have been able to show you. So key metrics around the project, it'll be a mixture of open pit and underground mining. The mining will be contract mining. Processing will have crushing, sorting, and flotation. It'll be mining will be at 800,000 tons per annum. Sorting, processing will be at 400,000 tons per annum. We'll have a modular plant, which has been designed, obviously, as part of the DFS, and will produce standard copper, zinc, and lead concentrates, which will then, if we do draw down on the Anglo-American loan, those concentrates would go into the Anglo-American marketing machine and be marketed through Anglo. We've got a powerhouse at site with reticulated gas to site. So I'm not going to dwell on these numbers too much more. We've talked about them. Key metrics, 8 years, a mining inventory of 4.8 million tons, and the capital cost of just 71 million with working capital of just 14 million. And all of that results in an NPV of about 220 million with an IRR of 54%. I'm going to jump over that slide. I'll just talk very briefly to this slide. So this is the Anax and our technology partner, Nexus flow sheet. It's a simple flow sheet. It allows us to decouple mining. As I mentioned before, we mine at 800,000 tons per annum. We then sort, and the finer material goes through a gravity circuit, and we process it just 400,000 tons per annum. So we process the highest grade material. We then take a second bite at the cherry. We recover the remaining sulfides. They go onto that existing heap leach infrastructure that we looked at in the previous slide, and we bio-leach that material, or else we store it to be processed at a later time through the concentrator. And finally, you end up with essentially sulfur-free barren aggregates that we will look to market and sell. I just want to make it very clear that the numbers that you see in the DFS are all about this part of the process. we haven't included any of the upside from the bioleaching or the aggregates, and those are subject to further studies that will be run through the back half of this year. Development timeline will be around about 18 months, and that'll kick off obviously at FID once financing is complete and bedded down, and once the permitting is complete and bedded down. The next quarter will be all about closing out the permitting and the financing. The production schedule over 8.5 years. We start off with an open pit at WhimCreek. We have larger gear going in. So we've got a 200-ton digger, we've got 777 trucks going in, stripping it back. Then a smaller fleet with a 90-ton digger and articulated trucks will go in and mine the ore. The larger fleet then go and open up the pit at WhimCreek, and then we go in and mine the ore at WhimCreek. And then we move into the high-grade satellite undergrounds, firstly at Evelyn, and then we move on to Salt Creek at the end. So the sequencing works very well. It's very robust, open pits to begin with, and then into the undergrounds. And there's obviously overlap between the various mining operations to ensure continuity of feed to the operation. I'm going to jump through these fairly quickly. This is where the critical mass sits at WhimCreek. This is where we mine first. There's the old pit that was mined by Straits, and a satellite pit over there that was mined by Straits. This is where the bulk of the ore body is, higher grade sitting at the top where the massive sulfides are, stringers underneath. 3-year mine life. We get in there, mine very hard, and then move across to WhimCreek, which is more of the same, but a smaller development on our part. And then we move into Evelyn. This is very exciting. Evelyn is open at depth. It's a very high grade underground. At the minute, we've got a reserve there of about 500,000 tons at about 3% copper equivalent. But we expect that these two chutes will join together, may well join together as we drill deeper. It's only 170 meters deep. And then Salt Creek, also high grade, running around about the 3% copper equivalent. Here we've got a reserve of close to 1 million tons, and this is open at depth as well. Just moving on to the processing side, I'm not going to run through any of the numbers on the processing plant, but this is the ore sorting part of the processing. This is all the existing crushing infrastructure that will be refurbished. And then we put 2 parallel primary sorters, a single sorter on the secondary sort. And then there's the gravity circuit over here. And together, those reduce the volume of material that's mined by half, that's then fed to the concentrator. The concentrator is a modular plant. Gecko Systems in Ballarat have designed it. 400,000 tons is ideal for the modular scale. It'll be a differential float, so we'll have copper, lead, and zinc flotation producing those 3 concentrates. So here you've got the milling, the feed to the milling plant, you've got the mill, you've got the flotation plant, you've got the cleaning and regrind, and then we've got all of the filtration and product area over here with a large lime silo over there. A little bit of detail on the capex. Pre-production capex of 71 million, made up largely of the crushing and ore sorting plant and the concentrator, as you'd expect. The costs of the infrastructure are low, and the obvious reason for that is that there's already all the infrastructure there. So a lot of the infrastructure cost is around refurbishing, and then we've obviously got provision for a camp. We expect that we may have some savings there if we are able to utilize the camp at the WhimCreek Hotel. These are the deferred capital costs. These will all be paid for out of working cash flow. Moving down to the operating costs, detailed breakdown of the operating costs. The point I want to make here is that the operating costs are heavily weighted towards the mining. particularly the underground mining, processing around about $40 a ton, and all up we end up with an operating cost of about $170 a ton. We, on the back of the high grade nature of the ore bodies and the technology that we're using, we can easily support that sort of operating cost. Moving on, we've talked about the financial metrics, and I just ask you to have a look at the cost deck that the pricing deck that we've used. I'm not going to dwell on this any further than that, but we've been reasonably conservative in our approach on the pricing, and we certainly believe that the project will show the leverage that the higher copper prices will likely deliver for us over the next 2 to 3 years. Sensitivities. Highest sensitivity or greatest variability is around the exchange rate, and then, as you'd expect, the copper price and the copper grade, and then operating costs come forth. So a little bit more about the growth prospects. I've talked about the undergrounds, both of them open at depth. We will drill at Evelyn this year. I'm not sure we'll drill at Salt Creek. This is 400 meters down here. We may wait until we actually get into mining before we look to extend Salt Creek, but I certainly expect that we'll see immediate growth at Evelyn through some additional drilling this year. The exploration side of things, I just want to highlight, looking at the map here, we've got the De Grey tenure out to the east of us. All of these golden circles here are the De Grey deposits. We've got Hemi in the middle here, and you can see there's an obvious trend. This is over 150 kilometers. Here's our tenure here. You can see the structures that have been so successful on run east to west. High probability that we'll find some gold on our tenure, and of course all the near mine prospectivity on the base metal deposits. Fantastic exploration potential. The bioleaching, I won't go into the detail on this. We will talk about this a lot more in the future. We've refurbished all the ponds. We've got a heap. We're going to put sulfides on that heap, and we're going to get additional value from that. That's very exciting, because within our region, we will be able to treat oxides, transitional, and sulfides in our processing hub. Will be one of a kind. I won't talk about the copper market on this webinar. The demand side is very clear, and the supply side is obviously where the constraints are. And we're excited to be one of very few near-term projects that will deliver into that supply side. So I think without further ado, I will hand back to Nicola so we can start having some of the questions.
Thank you so much for that update, Geoff. That was fantastic. We now will move on to our Q&A session. So our first question, there are some well-documented labour challenges in WA at the moment. How do you see such challenges impacting the delivery of the WhimCreek mining operations on time and on budget?
Yeah, the labour skill side of things is probably the biggest risk and the biggest challenge. And I think it's clear that things will take longer on the back of the labour shortages. The strategy that we've followed with being able to build a modular plant off-site will help with managing some of those potential issues. And we've obviously elected to go for contractor mining, so we'll immediately engage with groups that have well-established teams. We're not having to build up new mining teams. So I guess those two factors will help manage some of that risk. But it is a risk that we have to just watch very carefully and manage as closely as we can. And I'll just want to highlight that on the permitting side of things, the permitting is definitely affected by the labour shortages within some of the government agencies. So we've obviously done everything we can to move the permitting as rapidly as possible. but we're certainly seeing, and of course ANX isn't alone in any of these things. We're certainly seeing that permitting is taking longer because of skill shortages within the government agencies.
Thank you, Geoff. Our next question. The ore sorting technology sounds fascinating. Can you provide some practical examples of mining operations which are successfully utilising such tech? And why is ANX convinced the suitability of the ore sorting at WhimCreek?
Yes, so ore sorting is at the heart of what we're doing. It's really exciting to be involved in technology, in being able to solve problems using smart technology, and that's what we're doing. But it's not new technology. Ore sorting's been used in the mining industry for nearly 30 years, particularly in the diamond space. The technology has evolved very rapidly in the last 5 to 10 years on the back of advances in computational speed and the sensors, the X-ray sensors or the near-infrared sensors that are used. So it has found applicability quite widely in the mining space. And I just want to make the point very clearly now. Ore sorting is all about unpacking geology. So it is all about the geology. And I think people often get tied up and confused about looking to try and get parallels on to say, well, does sorting work on copper? Sorting works on certain geological structures in copper, in rare earths, in lithium. So it is all around the mineralogy and the geology. So to answer the question, ore sorting is being used very successfully at the Renison project, which is owned by Metals X. That's a tin project. They've got a 2-stage sorting process there. It's being used by EQ Resources, which is at Mount Carbine. That's a tungsten project. It has been used by Western Areas when Western Areas were before they got taken over on the Cosmos project, and before Western Areas had the project. So when it was owned by Jubilee, so back in the early 2000s, it was very successfully utilized at Cosmos. It's used in the lithium space down at Mount Catlin, and it's used in rare earths at Browns Range. So there are many examples, and we'll be one of the first users in the VMS space. We've looked at, we acquired this project because I knew several years ago that the technology was going to be very beneficial. It was the metallurgy was going to be highly leveraged to the application of the sorting, and we've done a huge amount of test work. We're very excited about being able to apply it. And I think that just to take that a step further, I expect that VMS projects generally in future will almost without exception use some form of sorting and gravity separation to pre-concentrate, to reduce their tailings, to improve economics and reduce power and water.
Thank you, Geoff. Our next question, which is also in relation to ore sorting, how much do you know about the potential for the ore sorting technology's suitability for some of the regional Pilbara deposits, which form part of the regional hub processing strategy?
Yeah, we've looked closely at all of the deposits within a 200-kilometre radius of WhimCreek, and almost without exception, we believe that they will, to a greater or lesser extent, benefit from the application of ore sorting. Many of them are VMS-style deposits, and we've obviously now done a huge amount of ore sorting on our 4 different VMS deposits, and have proved without beyond doubt that it works very successfully on those 4. And on the back of that, we're confident that it will work on other VMS deposits in the region. But there are other mineralized structures, other geologies in the region, which we've had a look at, and we think that there's reasonable probability of the technology being successful on those as well. So, as I say, I think the primary sulfide deposits in our region, almost without exception, would benefit from the application of the technology. And that's good because it means that pre-concentration at a satellite mining operation, bringing high-grade pre-concentrates to that processing hub. And we've got the processing hub, we've got the technology, we understand the logistics. So good outcome for us.
Okay, Geoff, and this looks like our last question for today. It sounds like you've had a busy 2.5 years since acquiring WhimCreek. Has the DFS delivered what you expected?
Well, it certainly has been a whirlwind, and I'd like to thank our team for the incredible hard work that's gone into the 2 years to delivering all these outcomes. The DFS has exceeded expectations. We started off on a strategy where we were planning to just essentially be a satellite mining operation, where we were looking to produce pre-concentrates and send them to another processing operation in the region. The onset of COVID and various other factors took us down a path of looking at developing the whole project, the processing part of the project at WhimCreek. And on the back of that, I think that we've delivered a far superior outcome. And now we're looking at a business that will grow from there as the processing hub at WhimCreek. So it's, in terms of the economic metrics, it's certainly delivered far greater, higher cash flow than we had expected. And there's more of that to come. And in terms of the business opportunity, we're very pleased that we were, to some extent, forced into this position of looking at building our own processing hub. So yes, it's a fantastic outcome. And again, I'd just like to thank our team for all their hard work.
Thank you, Geoff. That does appear to cover the majority of our questions for today. Thank you to yourself and the ANX team for the comprehensive update. And if you do have any further questions for Geoff, please feel free to forward them to info@corporatestorytime.com. Thank you everyone for attending today. Thanks, Geoff.
Thanks all, and thank you very much, Laing.